called teenage. This is that particular age where the teenagers find themselves to be in the rebellion, or they are sort of the mavericks out there who wanted to change the world, and they feel that they are being misunderstood. There's a communication gap between them and parents. Obviously not every child is like that, but generally because of the changing and accompanying hormonal changes, we just see that it's not just physically that they are changing, it's also emotionally and mentally. And how to deal with this particular age of the childhood or of the parenting, because parenting is something which is taken as granted a lot in our societies. It is something which we see and think that it is an inborn, it's an innate quality, and with the passage of time we will come to enjoy it, we will come to experience it, or we will come to learn about it. But I think this is a subject that needs to be discussed. There needs to be experts' opinion on it, and how to deal with that, and how to have this particular generation, because they're very different from the generations before this generations. So how to deal in the parenting stages, what are some of the issues which they face, and how to deal with them, and that too in a very friendly style, because today nowadays it is the era of lots of rights. People talk about it, but no one talks about taking the responsibility. So without any further ado and without monopolizing my conversation, I'm very glad that I've been joined by someone who happens to be a consultant clinical psychologist, and she will discuss about the parenting issues, that too particularly in the 21st century. So I'm very glad that I've been joined by a beauty with the brains. She happens to be Dr. Halima S. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to my show.
Walaikum salam. Thank you so much, Hajra. It is such a pleasure and seeing you. And you have already set a very high standard by all awareness in the prologue which you have settled in for the topic, and it has set the stage that where we are going ahead, and it also shows that how much in-depth knowledge you are having about this topic, I guess. And if we are talking about the teenage and all the challenges, you have covered a lot of areas, that all the hormonal changes and all those things we are going to talk about.
Yes, and obviously we are going to develop this conversation further. So Dr. Halima Sadia, I'm pretty sure as a psychologist who is practicing, I think I'm really sorry, but we have to go on a short break, and after we come back we will discuss it further. Talking about what are some of the issues that teenagers might face and how to parent them in 21st century. And there's constant a tug of war between teenagers and their parents. Parents want their teenagers to be more responsible, to take the responsibility for their actions, and teenagers want a constant source of freedom to perform the action. So between this tug of war between responsibility and the freedom, I mean, where are some of the gaps, and what are some of the issues that now teenagers face, and how to better parent them? I will throw this question to my worthy guest here, Dr. Halima. So please tell us, what are some of the issues that teenagers face, and how to better parent them?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you for asking this question and bringing this topic into highlight. If we are talking about the teenagers, actually the issues they are experiencing is the emotional, we can say emotional constipation they are experiencing into their lives, and by the parenting they are having. And I will not blame all to the parents, but the environment and all the peer pressure and all other things are all the other factors which are playing its role, because there is a lot of comparison. Today's teen is being judged on a number of different factors than we can see in our teenage and our parents can see in their teenagers. So there were not that much of the challenges. Parents, it was easy for the parents to take control or monitor all the areas, but nowadays definitely parents are under the stress of this mega factor, that they have to monitor their social media activities, they have to monitor their schooling, whatever is going on, whatever content they are going through by themselves, where they are going. So there are a lot of things, and on the parents part they are already stressed with a lot of these factors in their lives, because nowadays mostly both parents used to be working, and even if one is not working, they have to cover up a lot of other domains of that life area, that one has to compensate the other person's role as well. So nowadays the challenges are on both sides too much. So a lot of things used to pile up on the parental level and on the teenage level, and when both of them are doing the responsibilities which is required by that particular role, they are having too much little time together to sit in to settle all those emotional availabilities and all those things. Because parents, every time I used to hear the parents say that we are doing everything we can, but the teenager is not responding, but our child is not responding, and its response is not synchronized. But the thing is that what parent is giving and what the child is receiving or the teenager receiving, maybe they are not synchronized, but maybe the needs are not synchronized.
Right.
The child did not only need the physical availability or financial stability maybe, and the parents are doing that on the maximum.
And I think there is a race nowadays in
Exactly.
which people are engaged, a race in which they want to have the best lifestyle, a race in which they want to afford the best cars and all of these luxuries. And in that race, there's so much pressure going on. And you said something very important about this fine balance or dance between the receiving and the giving aspect of that, right? And we generally see, so this generation is very different, right? They're more enlightened because of the barrage of the information they are receiving from their parents' generation or from their grandparents' generation, right? And when you have to parent them, so it has its own sets of challenges when we talk about it. So Dr. Halima Satia, what sort of, and I mean teenagers go through a lot of identity crisis during that turbulent stage because there are hormonal changes going on and this are physical changes accompanied by the emotional changes. So what are some of the issues as a clinical psychologist, as a practitioner that you face, or the common theme that you've found, the patients that you deal with, or not just patients, or the consultancy that you give out to dole out to the people?
First of all, I would say that the teenagers used to be experiencing all the emotional baggage, and that emotional baggage mostly is related to the unavailability of someone to hear them out.
Okay.
They are unable to share it, and this identity crisis you are talking about right now, this used to be formed in all the previous years, that how they have been taken care of until the 12 years of age, how they have been narrated about the values, about the rules, and about the emotional availability, love, compassion, all these manifestations of all those emotions and all those things that they have learned by the age of 12 years, and now it is the execution of all these things in the teenage. Because in teenage, every child and every teenager used to think that they know everything, they are physically competent, they are physically capable, and they are emotionally capable as well. But now if they are not ready for, because we can say that teenage is a war zone of the entire life of any person's life, because there are a lot of hormonal changes, there are going to be the mood swings, there are going to be a lot of ups and downs in their emotional capacity. So in that, if they know that how to regulate their emotional states, how to change their emotional state, but before we can change anything, if we are not aware if they are actually there, then we have no clue how to fix it. So to tackle it, first we need to inculcate that awareness, that how they can assess their own emotions. Because if we talk about emotions, even if we talk it to an adult, if we just ask them, I used to ask my clients what you are feeling, and what they answer me, do you believe they give me their thoughts, not their feelings, because they are unaware that what is feeling, what is thought, and what is in the body. Sometimes they say the pain in my chest. The pain in my chest is not a feeling. It's a body sensation associated with some certain feeling, maybe anxiety, maybe restlessness, maybe something else, maybe nervousness, maybe shyness, maybe anything. But they used to mislabel it. So if an adult is mislabeling, then what we have taught to a teenager, that how they can be emotionally aware. So if emotions are not regulated, that is that they don't even know that emotions exist and what is the name of the emotion I am feeling right now. So we have to help them. Okay, we have to have a communication with the teenager, that what you are feeling, you seems upset, you have to acknowledge the person's emotional state right now. You seems upset, what you are feeling right now.
True. And I think you touched a very important point that relates to the emotional regulation or dysregulation, that I would say, and the baggage which the parents, so when we talk in the terms of the parenting, so I mean, our parents, or the parents generally, they're also going through the traumas, and the traumas that they are carrying from the generation to generation, which have been passed from their parents, their grandparents, and they're unable to break that very vicious cycle of the generational trauma that resides in them, right? And somewhere down the line between the parenting a teenager and them, so that trauma stays in the form of the mother trauma or the father trauma, right? So how do you think we can identify that, and how can we also convince our parents that they also also need to, I mean, have the more nuanced form of the emotional regulation, or they also need to invest themselves in the emotional regulation, because whenever we talk about the mental health, I think let's talk about it, that there's a stigma attached to it. So people say, you know, you pagal pan hai, yeah, etc., etc., right? So these are very degrading or derogatory terms that are associated with that. How can we deal with that generational trauma that still remains unaffected and passed from down to generation? How can we deal with that?
Exactly. Always there is a wave which has bared the consequences, and this was the wave of the present generation who is raising the children right now. So they have affected because there was lack of awareness. Such things were not discussed at that time. So the parents who have raised those parents who are parenting right now these days, they are not aware of these emotional baggages. So the trauma, as you are saying, that it is generational trauma because they have inherited that thing from their parents.
Right.
Because we can see that the strictness, which was so talk about the proudness, that the parents are so strict that they used to claim that people used to comment.
Respect,
exactly,
right? Which
exactly,
is a very
that strictness.
False notion.
Because it used to be said that you have seen my child, he can't even speak a word before his father. See how respectful he is. And this is the most disastrous thing we can say about a person's personality, that he can't say even a word before a father or a mother because of the fear. If he is not saying, then he must be saying it somewhere. Or if he is not even saying that, then he is making all the consequence on his own body, that like self-harm, which is so much common in the teenage nowadays as well. So this self-harm affecting, implementing, because one thing is suppression, and if it is not suppressed, there are only two directions we are seeing in teenagers, the trend we are seeing. One is self-harm, they are suppressing everything inside and harming themselves, and the other is aggression. And people used to associate that it is because of the video games that the childs are involved. It is not that much massive effect of the video games. Why we don't talk about the 24/7, that environment they are residing in, and why they have to resort to that video game in which they are seeing their own refuge, that they are seeing that they can act on their own impulses. Yes. So maybe video games are some sort of a catharsis, you use the right word. So they can be using as a catharsis, or sometimes to manifest their own urges.
True. And I think you raised a very important point, and when you were talking, so an anecdote came to my mind, and we have the seerah to reflect back upon and to learn about the parenting. So a Bedouin came, and Holy Prophet Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was loving his grandkids, Hassan and Hussein, and he said that I have 10 kids and I don't love them. And then Prophet replied that if Allah has not put rahm in your heart, so what can I do about it, right? So this shows that the power of the physical touch, right? As a grandfather, he would touch them, he would love them, he would hug them. This was his love language, right? And nowadays when you talk about it and you say that there was a strictness involved, and that strictness was associated with the false notions of some sort of respect, right? So I think it's very important that the kids need to feel that love physically and emotionally also, right? And sometimes I think down the line, you know, it's said that, you know, there should be a formality between a father and a child. So do you feel that these notions need to be dissected and further discussed upon? I mean, and do you want to shed some light on the power of the physical touch and the love between a parent and a child, of course?
Exactly. Exactly true. If we talk about this physical touch, definitely the researches and the science proves it, that if you have hugged someone for 10 seconds, the oxytocin and a lot of other hormones, which are the happy hormones in the body, they used to start releasing. And if they are like the type of the hormones and the chemicals released when you eat a chocolate, because it is called a love sort of a feeling you feel after eating the chocolate, because it is associated with that. On the basis of that, it elicits some sort of those feelings and emotions. So that is, if you can do that by just a physical touch, by just holding someone's hand, by patting on someone's back, by putting a hand on someone's shoulder, all these are the unsaid words for a support, for the availability, and the person feels more available. If we just start doing it at a remedy, as a medicine, if you just start, if the parents who are watching, if they just start doing it from today, When the child is coming back, because these breaks are very important. If the child is coming back from the school or the college, and if he is coming back from playground or something, also after the break, greeting that child, greeting that teenager gives him an extra empowerment. He will start getting more surprised that, wow, I am important.
Right.
Just welcome him. Just welcome him. It is just going to take 5 of your seconds, 5 to 10 seconds, nothing more than that.
Right.
Just give him attention and then just involve into something. Because nowadays parents used to complain that we don't have time. The way psychologists used to say that we have to be emotionally available, but we don't have time. We have a lot of things to do in the day. But these 10 seconds, if we can't invest those 10 seconds, then we don't have the right to complain that why our child is, if we are not giving them 10 seconds, then whatever we are giving, that is satisfying just your urges that you are giving the maximum. The actual thing which they need is the emotional thing. And definitely every person by the end of the day needs an emotional acknowledgement and acceptance, and parents as themselves can feel it. By the end of the day, if they have no one to share their day out, they are going to be burned out by the second day.
That's very true, and I think as a human, it is our nature that we love validation, we love appreciation, and if it comes in the form of the emotional attachment, if it comes in the form of the emotional love, I think that's the amazing thing that one can experience, and that too, that shows that that person or the child is being raised in a healthy environment, and that's very much important. Apart from physically or materialistically satisfying the needs of your child, emotional needs also need to be met for the child, and that's very important nowadays. And with that, we will wrap up the segment. Thank you so much, Dr. Halima S, for coming to my show, for discussing that very important issue of parenting a teenager. And I think this is such a huge and a wide topic that we need to constantly discuss and talk about it more and more. So we are going on a short break, and after we come back, there's an interesting discussion lined out. Don't go